From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. We start in Mexico, where thousands of Honduran migrants are camping on the Guatemala-Mexico border in hopes of continuing their journey toward the United States. Hundreds have also crossed the Suchiate River on handmade rafts. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that the caravan must be stopped before it reaches the United States. The governments of Honduras and Guatemala say they will implement a strategy for returning the migrants back to their countries. And Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto condemned the methods some migrants have been forced to use to enter the country.
This evening, an unprecedented situation happened on the border between Ciudad Hidalgo, Chiapas, and Tecunumán, Guatemala. Violent entry into the country not only threatens our sovereignty, but also puts the migrants themselves at risk.
But on Saturday afternoon, authorities began to let a limited number of women and children into the country. They're being registered and sent to a shelter in the city of Tapachula, about 40 kilometers from the border. Our correspondent in Mexico, Eduardo Martinez, has more details.
The Mexican government have closed the border, so migrants are trying to get in via the river using rafts like this. They are not only risking their lives, but could be easily be caught and deported by authorities. What I can tell you is that Mexican immigration has decided to open the border for women and children only. They are then reportedly being transported by bus to the town of Tapachula, where they will be able to apply for temporary asylum.
Hidalgo's main plaza has become a makeshift shelter for members of the migrant caravan who managed to get through the border. These migrants, most of whom are from Honduras, lament the circumstances that made them flee.
We had to flee because Honduras is very dangerous. We can't find jobs. We don't have enough resources. Here in this shelter, we are eating better than we did back home.
They are traveling with the intention of reaching the U.S.-Mexico border, despite the fact President Donald Trump has said he won't let them in.
I want to send a message to Trump. We are honest people. We just want better social policies and a better economy. Honduras is in crisis right now.
Entire families are fleeing poverty and violence and have spoken about the lack of opportunities, a problem that goes back decades.
We all understand that we will reach our destination despite any obstacles they throw our way.
The shelter is housing over 2,000 people. Most of them got here by crossing the river that separates Mexico from Guatemala. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto sent out a warning to migrants.
As any other sovereign nation, Mexico will not allow entrance to our territory by irregular means, and much less violent means.
Hundreds of Central American migrants remain stranded on the bridge separating Mexico and Guatemala. Authorities have offered to move them by bus, but they fear they will only be taken to immigration services to be deported.
Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernández traveled to Guatemala to meet his counterpart Jimmy Morales. They discussed the means of helping the thousands of migrants who are part of the caravan.
I want to assure all Honduran migrants that we have deployed an official migration team to help all of you return to our country. We are also willing to provide legal assistance and economic help to migrants depending on what kind of business they want to open, in order to improve their lives and their communities.
Our correspondent in Guatemala City, Mario Rosales, has more on this.
Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernández arrived in Guatemala City to hold a meeting with Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales in order to discuss the situation of the thousands of migrants stranded at the southern Mexican border. The Honduran government requested this meeting to be held in the facilities of the Guatemalan Air Force in order to keep the media away. President Morales said he will provide any type of aid required by the migrants. In fact, Guatemalan police forces have been transporting those who want to return back to their country, although they're in small groups so far. The larger population is still remaining at the border.
Moving on, Julian Assange, who has been living under asylum in Ecuador's embassy in London for the last 6 years, is suing the government of Ecuador. This for alleged violation of his rights. Ecuador released a new protocol which requires Assange to pay for medical bills and phone calls, among other utilities. Assange's lawyer, Baltasar Garzón, said his client was not consulted on these new house rules.
We believe that the protocol violates fundamental rights. It limits the exercising of the right to a defense. It affects the privacy of people that don't have anything to do with the process beyond the possibility of them spending some time with or being with the affected person. And as such, what we are asking the judiciary is that it tells us whether or not this is correct and the possibility of reversing the existing situation. And above all, that the lack of communication should immediately cease.
A group of 93 Venezuelans who have returned to their country from Ecuador. The group was accompanied by former Venezuelan ambassador Carol Delgado on their flight home. The ambassador was recently expelled from the country in a show of rising diplomatic tensions between both nations. This is the 7th flight that has left Ecuador under the return to the homeland plan.
They have returned home, a place that now has a brighter future for them than when they left. These migrants have left a life of being victims of racism.
Venezuelans over there don't have any support from the Ecuadorian government. The visa process is not equal for all. People from Colombia have an easier time with the process. We are charged nearly $300 for an appointment that usually takes 6 months. Venezuelans in Ecuador have no advantages.
Cases like this are common for migrants. They're influenced by social media campaigns that promise a better life full of opportunities. They left thinking they would be accepted.
Once there, we realized things are not as they portrayed. There's so much xenophobia, not by everyone, but by enough people. There is no work. I thank God we were able to come back.
Despite the bad experiences, they're enthusiastic about the future. Rejection isn't just limited to migrants. The Venezuelan ambassador to Ecuador was expelled from the country, a move initiated by the right wing.
What they are trying to do is create an image of a Venezuela that is subhuman so they can attack it without consequence, so they can try and strip our sovereignty. They want it to look like Venezuela has no respect for human rights and justify an intervention. This is awful and we must stop it.
The duality of the government and the media to promote solidarity and show concern for Venezuelans have proven to be a ruse. Once they're on the shores, migrants have relayed stories of abuse and exploitation. The Bolivarian government is going the extra mile to bring them back home by air and land.
And the National Congress of Communes continues in Caracas with the participation of Mayor Erika Farias. During the event, Farias said this Congress has a responsibility in maintaining revolutionary consciousness. Community councils and social organizations have joined the call of President Nicolás Maduro to contribute proposals for the economic recovery, growth, and prosperity program. We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute.
And this October the 28th, the people of Brazil go to the polls again to elect their president in a second-round vote where democracy is at stake. Two visions for the country compete amid tensions over decisive elections for the future of the South American region. Telesur brings you all the developments of the event from the giant of South America. We are connected with you on our website and social networks. Coverage Brazil Decides 2018. Second round vote. Only on Telesur, the news source of Latin America and the Caribbean.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Thousands in Trinidad and Tobago are sleeping in shelters for the second night in a row. Heavy rains since Thursday have flooded hundreds of homes throughout the country. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has declared this a national disaster. Luckily, there are no reports of deaths so far, only minor injuries. Many residents have to be rescued from their roofs by neighbors in private boats.
I try to maintain my cool, right? And the persons were panicking a lot because I said earlier, two guys almost drowned me. They were both drowning at the same time, and I was trying to save the both of them. And they both were pushing me down into the water. So it was like, then there was a couple who was like Jack and Rose. They were holding on to an electricity pole. No, the water was like halfway up the electricity pole, right? And they were holding on to the pole. I swam for them 3 times from where I was. That was like about 200 meters away. And they were afraid to come.
Our correspondent Kitchen Haynes was in Greenville, Orqueta, and brings us this report.
48 hours of rain here in Greenville, Orqueta, has brought some of the worst flooding this neighborhood has ever seen. There are already people in their boats trying to get residents out. We've been here for about an hour and we have seen people on boats taking out sick old ladies, handicapped men, infant babies. A lot of people here. A lot of this water was up to waist-high, chest-high levels last night, and many of the residents who live on the ground floors of these apartment buildings have lost everything, and they all had to sleep last night on upper levels with their families. This is really some of the worst flooding this country has ever seen. This area especially, known for flooding, but residents say it's never been at these levels. The Prime Minister and several members of the Ministry of National Security have already been here visiting the residents to ensure that everything is okay and they can render as much assistance as they can. So this is the latest from now.
Thank you, Kichan, for that report. A 4.2 magnitude earthquake has struck the coast of Barbados. According to the UWI Seismic Center, the quake hit 92 kilometers south Bridgetown. So far, there are no reported damages or injuries. Brazil's Supreme Electoral Court is investigating if there's a link between far-right presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro and the illegal use of social media during the electoral campaign. The Workers' Party is asking the court to disqualify Bolsonaro from running. He is accused of being behind a campaign that allegedly sent WhatsApp messages attacking his political opponent, Fernando Haddad. A number of companies are believed to have spent millions of dollars to promote the social media campaign. Leaders of the Workers' Party in Brazil met with the Supreme Electoral Court on Friday to discuss a petition they lobbied against far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro. After the meeting, the PT President Gleisi Hoffmann said that they had the greatest respect for the TCE, but she's concerned by its response.
I would like to make it known that I came out of this meeting very worried about the Supreme Electoral Court's ability to confront this new situation in Brazil's electoral process. That is, with this fabrication of false news, lies, and their massive dissemination on the internet. I say this because yesterday we presented our legal petition to seek evidence and proof, and we have still no decision. In fact, our petition was made public, and that could lead to destruction of evidence. We are given to understand that the court will deal with our petition according to its usual procedures, as if we were in a normal situation, and that worries us a lot.
Earlier, we spoke with our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Meir, about the online messaging scandal that has marred the presidential race.
But let's say he was disqualified from the race. 50% of Brazilians in a poll that was released today say they're afraid that there's going to be a military takeover of the Brazilian government. And so even if, for example, he was pulled out of the race and Haddad won the election, people are still very worried about the state of democracy in Brazil right now.
The trial over the murder of indigenous leader Berta Cáceres has resumed in Honduras, but the Center for Justice and International Law has condemned irregularities in the trial. Another concern for social leader is that the trial was not open to the public. The leader and activist was killed March 2016. A recent decision by Colombia's Constitutional Court that no time limit will be placed on women requesting a legal abortion is causing controversy.
Women gathered at the Bolivar Plaza to celebrate the court's rejection of time limits on abortion.
We are celebrating because this stops any move to legalize abortion under limited circumstances. Under the 2006 ruling, access to legal abortion must have been provided in 3 circumstances: when the health or the life of a woman is threatened, when a fetus is non-viable, or when a pregnancy is the result of rape. Now, the new court ruling is a very positive step. The court showed maturity and wisdom.
The question had initially been brought before the court by Judge Cristina Pardo, who argued that a fetus is viable at 24 weeks and should therefore be afforded the rights of any natural human.
The Constitutional Court is giving Congress the chance to regulate the number of weeks in which a woman can access an abortion.
Even though they've won the legal battle, they say the war for abortion decriminalization continues.
This is how society should see abortion as a crime. It is a crime that brings only negative outcomes for women and, by extension, society. This is because women are risking their lives. It only serves to deepen social inequalities because students and indigenous women are the ones who are putting their lives at risk. They often make uninformed decisions.
Meanwhile, opposition congressmen have affirmed that they will defend women's rights above religious beliefs.
We will uphold the court that defends women's right of access to abortion, and we will keep fighting. We maintain our stance on the decriminalization of abortion.
Now they are urging the Congress to decide whether the time for women to pursue a termination of pregnancy will be limited or not.
One person has been killed and thousands left homeless after an informal settlement in South Africa caught on fire. A Cape Town city official says over 500 homes have been reduced to ashes. The blaze started in the early hours of Saturday. The cause has not been determined. Boko Haram jihadists have killed 12 farmers who work in the Nigerian state of Borno. According to witnesses, they used machetes to kill the farmers instead of guns. This so they could attract attention from troops nearby a village. Boko Haram has stepped up attacks on farmers in recent years, reportedly over suspicion of them passing information to the military. The Comoros government and the opposition have signed a deal that could end the latest bout of instability that hit the nation. Security forces and rebels opposed to the President Asali Assoumani have been fighting on the streets of the island's main city, resulting in the deaths of at least 3 people. Tensions escalated in recent months as the president plans to extend term limits through planned constitutional changes. This decision could see him rule for 11 more years.
The elders came. They said that probably the message would not have been passed on the young people, so they would have leaked President Asali to have accepted an extension of the deadline, and they took responsibility for bringing together the entirety of the elders in downtown Mutsamudu in the Medina to find a solution.
A Tanzanian businessman who was kidnapped early this month has been freed and reunited with his family. In a tweet, Mohamed Diwiji has confirmed his release. He had been kidnapped outside a hotel in the city of Dar es Salaam. The Tanzanian National Police chief told the press conference that Diwiji is being questioned.
It was around 2:30 a.m. when I received a call from Mo himself saying he is free and safe. So we had to go and pick him up. Due to the fact that our family was overwhelmed with the good news, we had to go straight to pick him up in Winkana grounds, forgetting to inform the police security. But above all, Duji is back, safe, and he is doing fine.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
Now I become a prisoner. The reason why we are here is because we are from Africa and we are black.
Documentaries Telesur presents
כל יהודי שרוצה לבוא לישראל, זה הבית שלו, זה מקום המפלט שלו. בשביל זה אני לא רוצה שיבואו לי כל בני ערב רב, מה שנקרא, מכל העולם, בגלל שבישראל זאת מדינה דמוקרטית, ופה אפשר לעשות מה שרוצים.
Promised land, excluded people. Sunday, only on Telesur.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Cultural manifestations, they are in all its forms and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. A march against the far-right Brazilian presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro has taken place in London. It was organized by the group Brazilian Women Against Fascism UK, who are fighting against sexism, racism, and homophobia, among other issues. In an open invitation on Facebook under the international Ele Now campaign, they called for no votes for Bolsonaro. The rally started in Trafalgar Square with the speakers and live music to showcase and celebrate Brazil's diversity.
Not him!
They later joined the People's Vote March in solidarity, where 700,000 people turned in central London to demand a second referendum on Brexit. Politicians and celebrities joined as part of the Final Say campaign, sponsored by the independent newspaper. The protest comes as the government's negotiations to secure a deal have broke down, leading to reports that the transition period may be extended. The next summit between the leaders of North Korea and the United States will reportedly take place early next year. A senior U.S. official said Trump and Kim could hold talks sometime after the first day of 2019. The two leaders have their first historic meeting back in June. Now the latest on the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and more from around the world.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has demanded an explanation from Saudi Arabia of the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Speaking at the regional convention of the Christian Democratic Union Party, she described his death as horrific and wants clarity into the circumstances leading to it. Khashoggi was last seen going into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul at the beginning of the month. The Saudis confirmed his death on Friday. They say he died as a result of a fistfight. 18 Saudi nationals have been arrested. It's been reported that he was dismembered and his remains are yet to be found.
Freedoms cannot be taken for granted all over the world. Take a look around, talking about Saudi Arabia, those terrible events which still haven't been cleared up yet, and where, of course, we demand an explanation.
A suicide bomber blew himself up and killed at least 15 people in Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul on the day of the elections. The attack happened when the bomber tried to enter a polling station. The deaths include 10 civilians and 5 police officers. According to a senior security official, 25 people were also wounded.
There was a blast and I fell down on the ground. Blood was everywhere, and there were many casualties, but I don't know what happened next.
A Georgian presidential candidate has been detained for handing out 3 cannabis cigarettes at the Cannabis Legalization Festival. Zorar Japaridi, who is the leader of the Gurchi party, is advocating for cannabis legalization. He was at the centre of a landmark case in July where he evaded punishment for the personal use of cannabis. Legalization is one of the hottest topics ahead of the elections on the 28th.
The world's longest sea bridge connecting mainland China, Hong Kong and Macau is set to open for the public next week. Critics see the bridge as yet another way Beijing is integrating Hong Kong into the mainland. The 55-kilometer crossing is seen as an engineering masterpiece. It includes a sneaking road bridge and another border tunnel. The construction was full of delays, corruption cases, budget overruns, and even the death of workers. Women across the world celebrated World Breast Cancer Day, a day dedicated to increasing awareness for early detection and treatment.
According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer is by far the most common cancer in women worldwide, in both developed and developing countries. There are about 1.38 million new cases and 458,000 deaths from breast cancer each year. Incidence rates vary greatly worldwide and are increasing in developed countries because of increased life expectancy, urbanization, and a more Western way of life. 16% of women have or have had breast cancer. The best way for women to prevent it is to carry out regular self-examination, where they need to look for change in skin, malformation, and pain in the nipples. Experts say these simple tips can help women detect breast cancer symptoms early, before it becomes life-threatening.
We come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories you can find at our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the